Hi guys, I hope you're doing well. And in this video, we're going to be solving question 3 from November 2020, paper 2. I'm not going to be solving the entire question, but I'm definitely going to be solving part A and part D. Part C, I'm not doing it right now, but later on, I'll make a video on it. Anyways, so as far as part A is concerned, it says define a demerit good. Remember that whenever you're writing a definition, it shouldn't exceed more than 2 lines. If it's a one line, even if you can just, write all the points in one line, that's even fine. But not more than 2 lines. You don't need to give a lot of things. So the question says define a demerit good, just give the definition and then move on to part B. There's no need to write that the government needs to intervene to reduce the quantity of demerit goods and demerit good causes market failure. No need to write all that. It's a definition. You write to the point and then move on. So what is a demerit good? A demerit goods, obviously they are harmful goods, and but the point is that demerit goods, first thing that you will write is they are harmful. Second thing that you will write is they create an external cost. Okay, and that's it. So demerit goods are harmful and they create an external cost, and that is why you can say that they are over provided, and they are over provided and over consumed in a free market. That's it, right? That's the only definition that you need to write. So even if you don't write they're over provided and over consumed in a free market, you can also write that consumers over consume them because they don't fully realize the true benefits. They don't fully realize the true cost of consuming them, right? So neither they realize that the fact that it's causing them, not only them harm, there's no private cost, that is their own health, plus there's an external cost, that is others' health as well, right? No need to give a lot of definite examples, cigarettes, alcohol. Just write to the point. Definition should always be to the point. B explains the difference between extension and an increase in demand. We know what an extension in demand is. You also know what an increase in demand is. A lot of you people will end up making a diagram for extension and showing a movement along the demand curve. And a lot of you will also make a diagram for shifts in demand curve, but there's no need for it. Remember, there's no need to make a diagram for a question that is less than 5 marks in O levels. Remember that always. So you make diagrams for 6 marks and 8 mark question unless a 4 mark question explicitly says to make a diagram. So you'll say extension just means the movement along the demand curve, which happens because of a fall in price, and an extension in demand represents the law of demand. It represents the fact that there's the demand for it represents the fact that the demand curve is downward sloping, and a fall in price would result in quantity demanded to extend, and that it just reflects the law of demand and the concept of ceteris paribus, and the fact that demand curves are drawn downward sloping. An increase in demand would occur whenever any factor other than price changes, such as incomes, price of substitutes, complements, etc., etc. There's no need to explain each and every factor in the exam. Okay, you move on, you save your time. Part D, discuss whether or not a government, now this is a good question, discuss whether or not a government should impose a maximum price on food. Discuss whether or not a government should impose a maximum price on food. First of all, remember that the question is asking you the on maximum price, so you will start your answer by defining what a maximum price is. So what are maximum prices? Maximum prices are price controls, obviously, that are imposed by the government, and the reason why maximum prices are imposed is to protect the consumer's welfare, because the equilibrium price is quite high. So for instance, let's say that if let's say that a farmer is selling, or the producer is selling wheat at a price that is equilibrium price, P1 Q1, right? This is demand, this is supply, this is the quantity of wheat, the price of wheat. Now wheat is a necessary commodity, so obviously everyone eats it, whether rich or poor. Now although this is the market clearing price, this is the equilibrium price, but obviously at this price not everyone can afford wheat. So because ultimately this is the market price, so the market price can be high, it can be low. This price can be affordable for many, but it can be unaffordable for many as well, right? So the government needs to intervene now, and it needs to take care of the welfare of the people, because wheat is an essential commodity, it's a necessary good, right? It's a necessary consumable item. So it will actually intervene now and impose a control on the price. It needs to control the prices. It will say to hell with the market mechanism, and go to hell, and the government will say that we don't give a damn about the market mechanism or the price mechanism or the free market prices or the laws of demand and supply. It's us now who are going to decide at what price the wheat should be sold. And then the government will impose a price that is a maximum price. Remember, maximum prices are always imposed below the equilibrium. So the government will say that, you know what, you're not going to sell wheat at P1, you're going to be selling at wheat at a price of P max, maybe. We can see in the diagram that, let's say, the initial equilibrium was 100 units, and now basically maximum prices, what happens is that the maximum price results into the quantity demanded to rise to 120 units, while the quantity supplied falls to, let's say, 80 units. So now there's a shortage or excess demand of how many units is an excess demand of basically 40 units. So basically what we're saying over here is that this basically creates an excess demand. So again, there's a disequilibrium in the market now, right? There's a disequilibrium, and disequilibrium is a sign of inefficiency. So yes, although maximum prices will help the poor people because it will reduce the price, it is going to reduce the price of the product. It is going to reduce the price of the product to P max. But then the problem, the fact that it will also create a disequilibrium or inefficiency is also a concern that needs to be addressed. So ये evaluation की line है जो मैंने बोली है. But having said that, सबसे पहले what I was saying is that this question is on maximum price, so you will give the definition for what maximum price is. You'll say that maximum price represents price controls, that the government intervenes in a free market, in a mixed economic system, in a free market, in a mixed economic system, and then it imposes a price control because it believes that the market price is too high. Now, this price is although an equilibrium price, but equilibrium does not mean necessarily affordable for everyone. Just because it's an equilibrium price does not mean it's affordable for the poor. And because it's an item that is food, right? Food is an essential commodity, so obviously the government will do something about it. So the government basically intervenes, and then it says that okay, fine, we're not going to be selling the product at a price of P1, we'll sell it at P max, right? And this is only done for the poor, because this price is not affordable for the poor, while this price is affordable for the poor, right? Makes sense. Also, what we're saying over here is, so that is why the government actually imposes a price. So now the people will be able to purchase food at a lower price. So obviously, basically people will be basically it becomes affordable now for a lot of people, and food becomes cheaper. If it becomes cheaper, many people can afford it, and that obviously food, we know, is a basic necessity, right? So it helps to reduce poverty, right? It helps to reduce poverty, especially absolute poverty, because absolute poverty is a measure that measures poverty on the basis of inability to afford basic necessities. So obviously absolute poverty will go down. Also, it's also going to stop monopoly firms, especially monopoly food producers, or monopoly food firms from setting high prices. So in future, since the government has, even if the monopoly tries to increase the price, they can't, because the government has set a maximum price on food items. So if there is any producer that is a monopoly for food, for this product, then they will not be able to increase the price and harm the consumer's welfare, because the government has imposed a minimum. Because the government has imposed a maximum price for this product. So it helps the poor people, it helps consumers, it helps protect consumers' welfare, it helps improve living standards as well, because now the poor people can afford goods. It helps poor people as well, right? So this is poor, and then it overall improves society's welfare as well. But then the question is saying, discuss whether or not a government should impose maximum price. So obviously you should say that, it's a discussed question, so you will go by saying that the answer to this depends upon a lot of facts. There are pros and cons of setting a maximum price, and the government must consider both while imposing it, right? So for instance, if a government just maybe if the government imposes a maximum price above the equilibrium, so remember that a maximum price that is imposed above the equilibrium is ineffective. So that's one evaluation that you can write, that a maximum price imposed above the equilibrium is ineffective. And the simple reason is, I'll tell you the reason why. If you say, if this is demand and this is supply, and this is the equilibrium price, let's say the equilibrium price of food is, let's say, $10, and this is an expensive price, for instance, and the government say that, the maximum the food will be sold is, let's say, $18. Now this is the maximum price. Does it make sense? Why? Because you're setting a maximum price which is much higher than the equilibrium price, and you're saying, okay, fine, you know what, now the food will be sold at a maximum price of $18. So obviously no one will sell it below $18, because you're saying this is the maximum that you can sell it for. So everyone will sell it at $18. So it makes sense, right? It doesn't make sense to set a maximum price above the equilibrium. So remember that if the government sets a maximum price above the equilibrium, it would be ineffective. It would make no sense, right? So it will have no effect, basically. So it will have no effect if it's set above the equilibrium, right? If it's set below the equilibrium, it will result into shortages. So that's another problem with maximum prices. It would result into shortages. So what? So obviously, if it's resulting into a shortage, it means that there is excess demand out there, and there's a disequilibrium. And excess demand means misallocation of resource. There has been a resource misallocation now, misallocation of resource. A lot of people think that all kinds of misallocation of resources is a market failure. This is not a market failure because you're not harming society's welfare here. Only misallocation of resource that harms society's welfare is a market failure. So please don't write it as a market failure. But yes, it is a sign of inefficiency. Yes, it is a sign of misallocation of resource. So the resulting shortage is causing inefficiency. So something has to be done. The government has to somehow maybe eliminate this shortage. Maybe the government can eliminate this shortage. The government has to eliminate this shortage. Maybe the government may resort to importing. Maybe the government imports the resulting deficit, and if the government imports, it will result into a balance of trade deficit, because if you import the difference, it will result into a balance of trade deficit, right? And it will have a negative impact on your current account position. It will become unfavorable. This will become unfavorable for you now. Also, the point is that it also depends upon what the nature of the food items. So for instance, some food items might be unhealthy. Maybe it might be unhealthy in terms of high cholesterol food. And if you're imposing a minimum price on food that is of high cholesterol, obviously, and you're reducing the price of that food, which is of high cholesterol, and it may be harmful for in a lot of ways, like may create cholesterol issues, heart problems, diabetes, and all of that. Then if you're reducing the price, if you're imposing a maximum price on food that is unhealthy, so that may not improve society's welfare. In fact, it may harm society's welfare. So it would represent a government failure. Remember that a government failure is an economic term that is used to represent government's failure in correcting problems, right? So this represents a government failure if you're imposing maximum prices to reduce on goods that are harmful, right? And obviously, let's say if you impose a maximum price on demerit goods. Now, your question may arise: why is the government is not crazy to impose a maximum price on demerit goods? Why would the government do that? Obviously, the government will might not do that, but theoretically, at least theoretically, this point makes sense, at least from a theory perspective, that if the government does impose a maximum price on demerit goods, it is kind of encouraging more demerit goods, right? It is encouraging more demerit goods to be consumed because now the price has fallen, right? Uh, Also remember that what happens is that we know that price is an incentive for firms, and if you reduce the price, if the price goes down, it will act as a disincentive. And what will happen is that in the long run, firms may exit the market. Firms may ultimately exit the market. And if this happens, if they exit the market, firms basically close down, and this result into unemployment in the long run, right? So it may result into unemployment in the long run, and then this is going to harm, this will harm the welfare of society. So on one hand, you're saying you impose a maximum price in order to improve the welfare, but then the welfare goes down, right? The welfare goes down as well. So the point what I'm trying to say over here is that the question is asking you to sort of evaluate or discuss whether or not the government should impose a maximum price. So you can't really comment. So you'll say that it's difficult to comment whether the maximum price should be imposed or not. However, you could say that maximum prices do have a benefit, and yes, maximum prices should be imposed in certain situations. For instance, like maybe it's a developing country, maybe it's a poor country, and if you're imposing a maximum price on essential commodity, and which is very expensive in the market, then yes, in that sense, imposing a maximum price will result into benefits, but then certain compromises will have to be made, such as yes, it will result into a shortage or an inefficiency. However, but the government must have certain measures planned for to cope up with those shortages. Maybe if there is any kind of past bumper crop, or there is any past buffer stock with the government for this particular good, it may export that. Sorry, it may release that in the market to fill in the gap and to fill in the shortage. Instead of relying on imports, the government could use past buffer stock to sort of fill in this shortage that has been created in the market, right? Also, you can say that if the prices of these goods have fallen, it may mean less profits for the firms, and less profits for the firm would mean that the firms may compromise on quality. Now, that's something that is not good. Quality compromisation, especially for necessary goods or food items, if you're having low quality food, it's harmful for your health. Obviously, in that sense, welfare will be affected. So on one hand, you're imposing maximum prices to improve welfare. On the other hand, your welfare is automatically harmed because of quality. So you see, you're actually supposed to debate in the exam. It's a discuss question is always a debate question. It's an argumentative question. You need to argue. A lot of students don't understand that it's an argument, maybe because they're not even told the correct way to write an answer. Maybe a lot of students just think that a discuss question means you need to write advantages and disadvantages, and that's the most absurd way to attempt a discuss question, by saying, oh, you know what, the advantages of maximum prices are as follows. Oh, you know what, the disadvantages of maximum price are as follows. Please don't do that, right? Please don't do that. One more thing, remember that there's another problem with maximum prices, that this is now you know that there is this represents a shortage. And remember that whenever there is a shortage, this shortage creates illegal markets, and these illegal markets are basically known as black markets. So shortages may result into emergence of black markets. Now what will happen is, basically there's a shortage, but the gap will be filled not in legal markets, because this product is not available in legal markets, right? There's a shortage. However, this product may be available in illegal markets, black markets. It may result into smuggling as well, right? It may result into smuggling, that is illegally bringing the product from outside borders. It may also result the product being sold at a very high price in black market. So now what will happen is that people will buy P max. P max was the maximum price. The maximum price is a low price. What will people do? Listen to this. People will purchase the product at P max, that is maximum price, at a low price, and then they will sell the same product at a very high price. Now, a lot of people, if you buy it at P max, obviously it would result into a shortage, because people have bought that product, but then again they will sell that product at a very high price, and they will make profits out of it. And all of this would be happening in illegal markets. You know that illegal markets are undocumented. It's shadow economy, right? So the government has no record of it. So obviously they can't tax those profits as well. So these kind of problems may arise if you have a black market. So the fact that whether maximum prices should be imposed or not depends upon a lot of other things. It depends upon on what kind of food you're imposing it, whether you're imposing it below or above the equilibrium, whether the government has planned to do something about the resulting problems associated with black markets or not. So yes, apparently you can just conclude your answer by saying that apparently on the face of it, maximum prices are helpful, especially if you're imposing it on food. Yes, they will help the poor people, but then there are problems associated with maximum prices as well, that the government should always take into account, and again proactively pre-plan or plan accordingly if they are imposing maximum prices. So that, let's say the problem of black market is a big problem, right? It is a big problem. It has to be. So the government has to do something. Just imposing a maximum price and then sitting quietly does not means that. And again, maximum price would also result into unemployment that we studied. If it result, because why unemployment? Because supply will fall. Supply will contract, not fall. It will contract. We know that if this is demand, this is supply, and you impose a maximum price, this is now your new quantity demanded. This is your quantity supplied. Initially, your quantity supplied was this much. Now your quantity supplied has fallen from, so this represents a decline. This area has a decline in quantity supplied. So if your quantity supplied, if you're producing less output, it means obviously that you'll employ less labor as well. Some of the labor you'll just ask them to leave, redundancies. That creates poverty. That creates decline in welfare. It creates decline in living standards. So the fact that maximum prices should be imposed or not is something that needs to be properly dealt with and thought about before imposing it, right? This is how you need to actually answer it. Okay, guys. So yeah, that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all around in the next video. Until then, take care.